So the Democrats in the House wanted to do a vote on Build Back Better, on the reconciliation bill. And Republicans were trying to use every tool in the toolbox in order to prevent this from happening. So what Kevin McCarthy did is he started speaking and he didn't stop. He went for over 8 hours. So let's go ahead and show the video.
I can look anywhere I want, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I cannot believe the amount of control one-party rule wants. They now want to dictate to a member of the floor of where I can look? Are you afraid of the basis of the information in the bill? Sir, I'm gladly to look at you, Mr. Speaker. There's a difference between addressing and looking. Nobody elected Joe Biden to be FDR. You can finish. No, you can finish. Don't lower your mask, you'll get fined. I think I'm upsetting people on the other side of the aisle when I tell them what's in the bill. They just yelled at me that they're leaving. I know some of you are mad at me, think I spoke too long. But I've had enough. America has had enough. So let this sink in. You're encouraging more of the to come. Picture America at a swim meet after World War II. We jump into the water. Not only do we win, we dry off before second and third arrive. I can't even afford to test drive a Tesla, and Elon's one of my best friends. You're celebrating it when inflation is at a 31% height. Gas prices, Thanksgiving, a border that in a few months breaks every record of the last 3 years combined. I'm just getting geared up. Good, you sit. Mr. Speaker, may I ask you a question? Did you get to take a bathroom break? And I didn't? But I understand, that's okay. I talk about what made me a Republican. I was in the 6th grade. I turn on the TV. I watch Jimmy Carter have a sweater on and tell me to turn the heater down, that the best days were behind us. Can I be Speaker? I can finish my speech up there. You ever eaten one of these baby carrots? I'll lead you in a little secret. There's no such thing. They're just big carrots. They chop them. They charge you more and you buy them. I don't know if this speech is going to make a difference. All right, what else we got here? My eyesight's going. Don't worry, I don't have that much. I just have to get to a certain time.
10 hours.
No, there's a record. There's a record. I'm competitive. I'm competitive.
That right there is a microcosm of the modern-day Republican Party in Washington, D.C. Whole bunch of bluster, whole bunch of talk, stand for absolutely nothing. So let me actually go ahead and throw the graphic up on the screen that shows what's in the bill. So House passes a $2 trillion spending bill, but braces for changes in the Senate. So here's what's in the measure as of right now. Again, this is going to change. $550 billion to address climate change through incentives and tax breaks, funding to extend the expanded monthly child tax credit for 1 year, housing assistance including $150 billion in affordable housing expenditures, expansions to Medicaid, and further assistance to reduce the cost of health care premiums for plans purchased under the Affordable Care Act, 4 weeks of paid family leave and medical leave, funding for universal pre-K, and roughly 6 million 3- and 4-year-olds. By the way, that's actually not universal, just side note. A provision to allow Medicare Parts B and D to negotiate prices directly with the drug manufacturers on certain drugs and cap out-of-pocket spending for seniors at $2,000 per year. By the way, they only reduced the prices of 10 drugs there, just for the record. A $35 cap on monthly insulin expenses, and the spending is offset with the following taxes. A 5% surtax on taxpayers with personal income above $10 million and an additional 3% added on income above $25 million. A 15% minimum tax on corporate profits of large corporations that report more than $1 billion in profit, a 1% tax on stock buybacks, a 50% minimum tax on foreign profits of U.S. corporations. Now, there's also negative things in there. There's, the SALT tax, which is just, you're basically cutting taxes for wealthy people in blue states. That made it in the bill. That was the worst corporatists, Democratic corporatists in the House, added that in the bill in order to get their votes. So there's a big, on top of raising taxes on the wealthy in some ways, like I just laid out for you, there's also a big tax cut for certain wealthy people in the bill as well. So it's not all puppies and rainbows. And as I told you guys, I'm against this bill because I had a hard line of you can't go below $2 trillion. This is below $2 trillion. And I said, I would need Joe Biden to sweeten the pot with a bunch of executive orders in order for me to be in favor of it, because it's just not enough. We're going to get one crack at this, and this is a half measure on top of the half measure within the half measure. It's not enough. I'd have to vote no. But having said that, that's what's in the bill. Kevin McCarthy, he doesn't oppose this bill from the left. He opposes this bill from the right. And you'll notice, you can go watch the 8.5-hour speech. I don't recommend it. But is he going to go through everything I just went through there? Is he going to tell you what exactly is objectionable in the policies I just laid out? Is he going to do? Of course he's not going to do that, because he'd look like an idiot. He'd look like a moron, because he has no good reason to oppose those policies there. Again, he's not opposing it from the left and saying this doesn't go far enough. He's saying it goes too far. He's saying it goes too far. And again, ultimately, these guys stand for nothing. So let's break down a bunch of the stuff he was saying there. I like you can't tell me where to look. Okay, look wherever you want. I don't give a shit. My favorite part is when he says, nobody elected Biden to be FDR, and AOC chimes in and says, I did. Yeah, allow me to echo that sentiment. I did as well. And so did almost every other lefty that I know. They crossed their fingers and hoped, for the love of God, I hope this guy ends up, betraying his track record as a milquetoast neoliberal corporatist and becoming like FDR. He says, I think I upset people when I tell them what's in the bill. No, on the contrary, I would love it if you went through the specifics of the bill and then said exactly what you're against there. And by the way, he wouldn't do that, because if he went through the real provisions of the bill, again, he would look like a jackass. Because when you look at the polls of all the things I just laid out there, when you look at the polls, it's not even a question. Americans overwhelmingly support this. Even Republicans support a lot of these policies. So they won't do that. They have to dodge and they have to deflect. He talks about America's had enough. Enough of what? I've had enough of corruption. I've had enough Reaganomics, but I certainly haven't had enough, social programs and New Deal politics. I would love to have more of that. And then it just gets weird. And the reason it gets weird is because he's got nothing to say and he has to talk for 8 hours and 30 minutes. So he just needs to fill the room with noise. And so what does he do? He picture America at a swim meet after World War II. Inflation's bad. The bill has nothing to do with inflation. Inflation all goes back to the supply chain. This bill has nothing to do with inflation at all. The border. Okay, what does this bill have to do with the border? It has Dickie McGeezax to do with the border. What are you on about, son? He says, the reason he became a Republican, I love this part. In 6th grade, I heard Jimmy Carter say to lower the heater. The horror. There was because at the time, there was, an oil crisis and a gas shortage brought about by our horrendous politics vis-a-vis Iran. So, by the way, if you wanted to avoid such a situation in the future, maybe try diplomacy and negotiations and allowing other countries to determine their own destiny. Because, of course, what do we do in Iran? We meddled in Iran. We overthrew a democratically elected government led by Mohammad Mossadegh, and we put into place the Shah, a dictator, because he was giving us really cheap gas. He was giving us in Britain really cheap gas. So we facilitated a coup of a democratically elected government, and then we cry when there's a revolution that overthrows our puppet government and it affects our gas prices. Well, maybe you shouldn't have meddled in the country the way you did in the first place. That's the real takeaway. Don't have a shitty imperialistic foreign policy. But that's not his takeaway. His takeaway is bad, Jimmy Carter bad, Democrats bad. That's the extent of what I've looked into here. And then, of course, he leaves us with beautiful rambling about baby carrots. I just think it's so revealing, isn't it? Like, if I had to filibuster, if I had to give a long speech about something, the entire time I'm going to talk about the policy. Now I'm going to bring up numbers and facts about how the thing I'm fighting for would help people, how the thing the opposition is fighting for is hurting people. We don't get it. We get nothing. We get, and Trump released a statement and said, congrats to Kevin McCarthy for fighting communism on the floor of the House. And it's like, you guys literally don't understand anything, and nobody should take you seriously. You don't seriously look into any of this stuff. They either don't know the first thing that's in the bill, or they know what's in the bill, they know it's popular, and so they can't address it on its merits, which goes back to the broader Republican strategy of what? To just obstruct, and fill the room with noise. And that's the end of the conversation. I mean, CPAC released an advertisement thing a couple days ago, and it literally had Sesame Street characters on it. And they said, like, Big Bird's not invited here. Why are they saying that? Because Big Bird was like, hey, go get vaccinated. Hooray. And they're like, oh, this is outrageous. Let's yell about Big Bird for 3 weeks straight because we're really serious people. You think that makes you serious? But this is all they have. They got nothing on the policy, so they immediately pivot to the culture war, and they talk about that nonstop. And they end up yelping about Dr. Seuss and Big Bird and all sorts of nonsense. And, you know, next up it'll be Dora the Explorer. And then, you know, I don't know, Muppet Babies. I'm dating myself with the Muppet Babies reference, aren't I? Muppet Babies is like some shit that was on air when I was a kid. So, Rugrats, Muppet Babies. Anyway, I digress. The guy's a joke. It's obvious he's a joke. He spoke for 8 hours and 30 minutes for no good reason. Now, by the way, this ended up passing the House, of course. It's going to go to the Senate. Manchin and Sinema are going to take a battle axe to its face. They're going to strip out what remains of positive provisions. Then the Senate may or may not pass that. And then it'll go back to the House, and the progressives in the House will be told, take the 3 crumbs that we've given you. That's what'll happen. And then my guess is most of the left will fall in line, like they always do, and end up voting for the half measure on top of the half measure within the half measure, the compromise to the compromise of the compromise of the compromise. And then, you know, anybody on the left who's objecting to it will be told, you're unreasonable, you're a purity tester. That's probably the way it's going to unfold, but I just want to take a moment to reflect on the fact that there was this, like, fake, impassioned fight from the Republicans, led by Kevin McCarthy, and at the core of it is absolutely nothing.